that man was Muhammad, the best of creation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Praise be to Allah alone, we praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is the truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to a new episode of Correct Your Recitation. I'd like also to welcome our guests here at the studio as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is indeed our tradition to begin by shedding some light on the meaning of the Quranic verses which we study in this session, which we began in the last episode with another beautiful surah of the beautiful Qur'an, which is Surat Yaseen. We recited about 12 verses of this beautiful surah, and now it is time to learn some of the meanings of these verses. And also I'd like to remind the viewers that we have a deal. This is your chance in order to memorize whatever we learn its meaning and learn how to recite it properly. So it is a golden opportunity. I highly encourage every one of you brothers and sisters, Arab and non-Arab, to join us in trying to catch up with memorizing those few verses of the Qur'an, since we already now know their meaning. Let me recite a few verses from the beginning of Surat Yaseen. Then inshallah we'll learn the meaning of these verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. Allah the Almighty says in the very first verse of Surat Yaseen, the surah was named after the first verse of it. And this verse happened to be letters. How many letters, Mustafa? Two. Just two. It is very interesting that people differ with regards to the letters which Allah the Almighty began some chapters of the Qur'an with. There is 29 surahs in the Qur'an which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began by certain letters. The total number of the letters without repetition is 14. The numbers which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to begin some surahs is 14 letters. And the surahs which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began them with these letters are how many? 29. 29 surahs. So, those 14 letters, the scholars differed in their interpretation, because there is no solid reference, no straightforward evidence that the word Yasin, for instance, means so and so. We have people who said that the word Yasin could be one of the names of Prophet Muhammad, because it seems like he's calling on him, Yasin, O Muhammad. Similarly, they said Taha as well, one of the names of Prophet Muhammad. This is what they say. And that's why you find many people naming their children, sons, after Yaseen and after Muhammad, assuming that these are names of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes.
Do we have any reference to that?
No.
Whatsoever. So accordingly, what is the actual meaning of these letters? Some of the closest said that Yaseen, that Allah the Almighty is calling on the insan. Insan is mankind in general, saying, "Oh mankind, listen carefully." Then He's going to make an oath. He's going to swear. Wal Qur'an al-Hakim. I swear to the Qur'an, which is full of wisdom. And as we spoke before about the different views concerning, the interpretation of those letters, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began some surahs with, we came to the conclusion, which is the most valid view. That
Doctor,
go ahead.
but should be a kind of oath, Yasin, because there is wa, which means and.
No,
And
the
of
wow
Qur'an.
in the beginning of the next verse, Muhammad, is not an and wow. Amongst the prepositions in Arabic is the wow. Literally means and. So it could be a preposition, not necessarily always. Sometimes when I say Wallahi,
Yeah.
Wow al-Qasam.
it is the wow of the oath. I swear by Allah or to Allah. So the beginning of the oath actually is in the second verse, not in the first one. The most valid view and the interpretation of those letters that the scholars said, those letters, none knows their meaning but Allah the Almighty. So why did He begin the 29 surahs with them? The Qur'an is full of miracles. It is the everlasting miracle. And amongst its miracles is the linguistic miracle. It was revealed in Arabic to the most fluent Arabic speakers, the people of Mecca who are living in the peninsula, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this Qur'an in Arabic in the most wise fashion, the most fluent way, and He revealed it to them on a prophet who happened to be illiterate. He did not go to schools. He doesn't know how to make poetry like them. They used to compete in this regard. So that when they would say, as they have said, "Oh, he made it up," Allah the Almighty would say, "Why don't you bring something that's similar to it? Or at least 10 chapters like it. Or at least just one chapter, even if it is the smallest chapter of the Qur'an." So that's why Allah the Almighty challenged the Meccans with the Qur'an, which was revealed in their own language, in order to perfect the miracle and that challenge. And He began certain surahs with these letters in order to ask them and defeat them utterly by saying, "Aren't these letters from the 28 letters of your language? Yes. Could you tell me their meanings? I am the one who taught Adam all the different mother tongues and languages. They do have meanings, but they are preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with Him. Could you tell me their meanings?" And that's why the scholars said, look at the challenge. In those surahs, for instance, Surah Al-Baqarah, which began by
Alif Lam Mim.
Alif Lam Mim. Remember, those letters, we do not pronounce them. Rather, we pronounce their names. What difference does it make, Mustafa?
If we pronounce their name, we will say Alif Lam Mim. But if it is the first one, we're going to say Alam.
There was an Islamic history professor who was sitting in a meeting and everybody was taking turns reading the Qur'an. So he began Surah Al-Baqarah by saying, "Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alam." He was an Arab. So the Sheikh said, "It is Alif Lam Mim with the Tajweed, 6 and 6, for the Lam and the Mim." He said, "No, it's Alam." So he tried to correct him and he was insistent. He said, "Why?" He said, "Look, didn't you read Surah Al-Sharh?" Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began the surah by saying, "Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alam nashrah laka sadrak." And also Surah Al-Fil, "Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashab al-fil." And this is a question. This is a totally different issue. So he was measuring this to that by analogy. Why? Because he did not hear the Qur'an once. He did not know the difference. So when we come to read those letters in the beginning of the surahs, we pronounce their names, not
Their pronunciation.
we do not pronounce them because each letter has a name and has a way of its pronunciation.
Yeah.
But those letters, the 14 letters in the beginning of 29 surahs, when we come to read them, we do not read them similar to other words by just pronouncing the letters. Like, take for example, the letter Alif, which is in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, the beginning of Surah Al-Imran, and the beginning of Surah Al-Sharh, and the beginning of Surah Al-Fil. Right? But this is a different Alif. This is a different Alif. When I say Alam, then this is just a letter. But Alif, Lam, Mim, each one of those letters are letters of mad. Some of them would be lengthened for 6 counts. A must. Mad lazim, compulsory. Right? So it has become a different letter. Those letters, some of them are measured in its lengthening 2 counts, and some 6 counts, as we discussed before in the mudud. Now, let's check a few examples and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presented this challenge to the most fluent Arabic speakers, to the Meccans. He said, for example, in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, after he said Alif Lam Mim, he said what? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Look at the challenge. Alif Lam Mim, those letters are of your own letters. Do you know them? That is indeed the book, the Qur'an, which has guidance, to the righteous ones. Also, in the beginning of Surah Al-Imran, Alif Lam Mim, then Allah the Almighty says, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum, nazzala alayka al-kitaba bil-haq. So it seems that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was using those letters to confirm the fact that this book is from Allah, that Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not make it up, nor was it revealed to him via the jinn or soothsayers. No, it is definitely from Allah. Another example, because we're running out of time, that in the beginning of Surah Ibrahim, the letters are Alif Lam Ra. The Ra is only 2 counts. Then, succeeding that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ إِلَيْكَ. This is a book that we have revealed unto you, send it down upon you. Why? In order to take people out of darkness into light by the leave of the Lord. لِتُخْرِجَ النَّاسَ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِمْ إِلَى صِرَاطِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. Well, and so forth. Now, the scholars happen to put together those 14 letters without repeating them, and they made up a beautiful statement. This statement says, نَصٌّ حَكِيمٌ قَاطِعٌ لَهُ سِرٌّ. Again, Mustafa. نَصٌّ, that's a text. We're talking about those letters compiled together, and they make up this phrase. نَصٌّ means it's a text. حَكِيمٌ, wise. And the Qur'an was described being full of wisdom repeatedly in the Qur'an. قَاطِعٌ, very precise, very accurate. There is no falsehood in it under any circumstances. No way. لَهُ سِرٌّ, that has a secret. And its secret is with the one who revealed it. Unfortunately, we ran out of time for this segment. But there is a lot to say concerning the word Yaseen, concerning the reason of the revelation of some verses in Surat Yaseen, and where was it revealed, and the reason, its contents. And we'll follow that by talking about some very interesting facts about this beautiful surah, hopefully from next time, inshallah. Brothers and sisters, a short break, and inshallah we'll return back very soon, so please hang around and stay tuned.
Recite it every day and do read it loud.
Many people trying to get together, but all their efforts were in vain because of ignoring or turning away from this great foundation. We see many people coming to the way of truth, following the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but later on, they get off track. What is the reason behind that? Unity is a result. It's not a cover-up. We have to be united from inside. And Allah made this clear in the Qur'an when He said, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ.
You know, sometimes it's important to take a break. We need to take a break. Take a break from what? From the everyday things to look at what we're really doing as Muslims. That's why we said we really need to have this program for you and for me to take a break right here on Huda TV. Stay with us because we've got a lot coming up on Take a Break.
And if you look into the early tafsir, early exegesis of the Qur'an, you will find that all the mufassirin were trying to find out where are the seven earths. Earthquakes, natural or artificial, can delineate the boundaries between seven different zones within the earth. The conclusion that we have seven different layers within the earth came to not only the 20th century. The true believer would prostrate down in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The blessings of that prostration will reach the seventh earth.
Recite it every day and do read it loud.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. In this segment, we're going to begin studying a new segment, a new rule, a new course in Tajweed, which is the characteristics of the letters, the Arabic alphabet. We studied before the articulation points, which tackled where does every letter in the Arabic letters come from?
Yeah, the articulation point.
Its origin. And we learn how to find out its origin by applying sukoon to the letter, then preceding it by a voweled alif. Then afterward, we studied the tafkhim and the tarqiq. The tafkhim and the tarqiq, fattening and thinning, Mustafa, were basically amongst the characteristics of the letters. We have seen, for instance, there are certain letters which are always fat.
Yeah.
There are certain letters which are always thin, such as the ayn. And there are letters which are in between. Sometimes they are mufakham, and sometimes they are muraqqaq. Based on what? Based on so many circumstances. The vowel that's on the letter itself, and if it is sakin, the vowel that precedes the letter. If the letter precedes this letter, then the one before it. And we studied this over a long period of time. So amongst the characteristics of the letters in Tajweed was at-tafkhim wa tarqiq. And I began with it, and I did not take it in order because of its importance, especially with the two letters, the lam and the ra. And we covered that in details, and it's all recorded, available for your download if you wish, from so many websites under the same name, Correct Your Recitation, or if you wish for stanalhaq.com. Many brothers and sisters, volunteers, mashallah, are doing a great task. May Allah bless them all in uploading these episodes immediately after they're being aired. So now, with the characteristics of the letters, this is a subject which differentiates the letters from others that share the same articulation point. Let me give an example. Sometimes, as we were speaking about the articulation points, yes sir, we said that we divided the tongue into segments. And we said there are certain letters which come from aqsa lisan, the deepest part of the tongue. If you remember, what were those letters? There were two.
Qaf.
Exactly, the qaf and
Ayn.
the kaf together in the same basket. And I wouldn't say the qaf. If you want to find out the articulation point of any letter, then you put sukoon, then preceded by hamza with a fatha. For instance, you say aq. Then we said also, from the deepest part of the tongue, the kaf, ak. So they have the deepest part of the tongue, that's an articulation point. There comes the characteristics of the letters in order to differentiate between letters which share the same articulation point or nearby, in order to distinguish them from each other, and in order not to confuse them while we're reading the Qur'an, especially if they're followed or preceded by other letters. So we tend to change their way of pronunciation. The characteristics or as-sifat of the letters would help us to distinguish between the letters, differentiate them from each other, recognize each letter as an independent letter. And this is given each letter mustahaqqahu. Sometimes those characteristics are permanent. We call them intrinsic or original. Meaning, wherever you go, this letter would have this characteristic, such as the letter qaf. It's a very loud letter, very heavy, very fat, very strong. It's always like that. Okay? There are opposite characteristics to that. So some letters would maintain these characteristics always. And there are some characteristics which may exist sometimes, and under some different circumstances would not be present. And that's why we call them صفات عارضة, or presented characteristics. Such as, we have the letter noon and the letter mim. We studied for so long that a noon, if it comes sakina, non-voweled, if it is followed by certain letters, it would determine its fate. Sometimes I will have to pronounce the noon very clear, and we call that izhar, apparent. And sometimes we have to merge the noon in the following letter. So the first noon is gone.
Sometimes we should hide it.
Hide it or conceal it, right? Convert it into another letter in the case of iqlab. So those characteristics are called presented. And let's see.
Doctor, this makes me ask a question. What's the importance of learning the characteristics of the letters?
This is exactly what I'm going to tackle right now. The correct application of the characteristics of the letters makes the letters clearer. So you do not confuse the issues, the qaf and the kaf, the dal and the dad, the ta and the ta. Okay? And studying the sifat makes clear which letters are strong in makeup and which letters are weak. The applications of the characteristics of the letters is what differentiates also a good reciter from an average one. We hear a lot of people, maybe leading the prayer, have a beautiful voice, and they recite with the ahkam of an-nun as-sakina wa at-tanween and al-mudud. They're very, very fine. But guess what? Sometimes when you're listening, if you are an expert, if you're somebody who studied the ahkam properly, the tajweed, especially the characteristics, you feel annoyed when somebody said sirata. So he's changed the sad into the sin. Or sirata, change the ta into ata.
Sheikh, is this what the Prophet peace be upon him meant with the hadith al-mahiru bil-Qur'an ma'a safarati al-kiram al-marara?
When the Prophet ﷺ said that one who mastered the Qur'an in its recitation and on regular basis recites it very oftenly, that the one who recites it properly and recites it with the proper etiquette as well. We have people, Mustafa, who are experts in the recitation of the Qur'an. They have high degrees in that. By utilize this recitation in funerals, in weddings, they earn their living out of that. Are they considered among the ranks of the angels, the purified? The Prophet ﷺ meant with that definitely those who recite the Qur'an properly, keeping in mind all the ahkam which are related to the tajweed, the ahkam which are related to the Arabic language, also the ahkam with regards to do's and do not do's.
The Sharia.
The Sharia. So do not just recite it without applying its meaning in their daily life. We have a long way to go, so we'll try to rush. What is the meaning of as-sifat, or characteristics of the letters in tajweed? It is the mood of demonstration of the letter when it occurs at its articulation point. So when the letter hits its articulation point, now we're going to describe it, which differentiates this letter from other letters. There are two divisions of as-sifat, as I mentioned earlier. The first is the basic, or as-sifat al-asliyah. Before we read the slide, now we know as-sifat al-asliyah, which are permanent. That you say, Mustafa is from this country. He is always from this country. He is born in this country. Muhammad is, for instance, white or Hispanic or Arab or whatever. These are basic characteristics, always like that. Somebody is tall or short, but being slim or fat, that could change, right? Similar to tafkhim or tarqiq. If he goes into diet system, he may lose some weight, and he may lose his money as well.
That's a good one.
Okay. These are characteristics that are part of the basic makeup of the learner and never leave the learner. Okay? And the presented characteristics, or as-sifatul arida, sometimes they appear and sometimes we ignore them because the circumstances are not available. So basically, they are occasional, based on the circumstances. Now, let's learn about the basic characteristics, because this is a long journey, and it would only require, number one, sincerity, number two, open mind. And never say, this is too much, this is difficult, because I believe you can learn more and more and more if you're sincere, and if you always keep in mind that you're learning about the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are 10 sifat in pairs. What does it mean? That a sifa or a characteristic that has its opposite. For example, we studied tafkhim
And tarqiq.
and tarqiq. So a tafkhim is fattening, and a tarqiq is thinning.
Thinning.
There is a shiddah,
And
strength, and there is ar-rakhawa, softness. Okay? And so forth. There are also 7 singular sifat or characteristics that have no opposites. And I believe that we're going to begin by the 7 permanent basic characteristics which are singular and they do not have opposites. The first one is whistling. Meaning, whenever you come to pronounce those letters which are characterized by as-safir, it would feel that like you're making the sound of a whistle. Whenever you whistle, you hear most likely what letter? Sin, right? And it could be sad, and it could be z or zay. And that's why those letters are as-sad, was-sin, was-zay. Let me just quote the 7 permanent, basic, singular characteristics which do not have opposites. Then inshallah we'll tackle them one after another. The second is the qalqala, and we tackled them, al-qalqala, in the past, but it is very important to have a quick recap over the qalqala, since we're studying it now in the course of as-sifat. The third is al-lin, or softness. The fourth is al-inhiraf, and this is a very interesting characteristic. It would show you definitely that not every qari is a reciter. It would show you who is very clever, who masters the art of the recitation. And guess what? Every one of you brothers and sisters can master that, hopefully, inshallah, when you follow us carefully. The fifth is the repetition, or at-takrar. The sixth is at-tafashi, or spreading around, Mustafa. Okay? The seventh and the last is al-istitala, or the lengthening. Okay, let's now tackle just one sifa. One basic, permanent, singular sifa, which is as-safir. I said how many letters?
3.
Have this characteristic, which is basic, which is inseparable from these letters. The 3 letters are as-sad, was-zay, was-sin. As-sad, was-zay, was-sin. And guess what? The strength of this characteristic is in the same order I arranged the letters. Let's see. As-safir means sharpness in the sound of the letter produced from its transversing through tight passage. You know that whistling is disliked, but we're not whistling here.
Yeah.
Whistling by the hands is prohibited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا كَانَ صَلَاتُهُمْ عِنْدَ الْبَيْتِ إِلَّا مُكَاءً وَتَصْدِيَةً. The Meccan pagans and disbelievers before Islam, they used to perform tawaf and offer the prayers how? By whistling and clapping. So it's not allowed to do that.
There was kind of worship?
Exactly. So now, whistling in this case, we're not whistling, but we are pronouncing some letters which have this characteristic. How? When I say, اهدنا الصراط, you hear what?
Yeah.
Like the whistle.
Sound like a whistle.
الصراط المستقيم المستقيم. Due to there is a narrow passage, a tight passage. So while the letter is emitted, it's going through this tight passage and it produces this
Safir.
sound
Sound
or
of
sifa
whistle.
of the whistling. The strongest whistle is with the letter Sad.
Sad.
And the middle is with the letter Zai. And the least is with the letter Sin. Let's see if we have time to take another characteristic. I guess we don't have time for that, but I will just wrap it up with the first sifa, which is as-safir. The sound of as-safir is not forced, is not a forced sound. I mean, we do not pretend. We do not act as whistling. But one should come out naturally with the letter. That sifa or that whistle would come out naturally with the letter. If a small space remains between the tongue and the palates, the whistle can be emitted easily. Ibn al-Jazari, may Allah have mercy on him, summoned in a poetry or a poem this sifa, saying صفيرها صاد وزاي سين. So, a sifa of as-safir has 3 letters, or 3 letters have that permanent sifa, which is the sad, the zai, and the sin. Well, this is all the time we have for the ahkam of the tajweed in this segment, and insha'Allah Azza wa Jal, after the short break, we'll start practicing. And consequently, from the next episode, we'll continue explaining the characteristics of the letters. I will leave you for a little bit, then return back, so please stick around. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Recite it every day and do read it loud.
Many people trying to get together, but all their efforts were in vain because of ignoring or turning away from this great foundation. We see many people coming to the way of truth, following the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but later on, they get off track. What is the reason behind that? Unity is a result. It's not a cover-up. We have to be united from inside. And Allah made this clear in the Qur'an when He said, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ.
You know, sometimes it's important to take a break. We need to take a break. Take a break from what? From the everyday things to look at what we're really doing as Muslims. That's why we said we really need to have this program for you and for me to take a break right here on Huda TV. Stay with us because we've got a lot coming up on Take a Break.
And if if you look into the early tafsir, early exegesis of the Qur'an, you will find that all the mufassirin were trying to find out where are the 7 earths. Earthquakes, natural or artificial, can delineate the boundaries between 7 different zones within the earth. The conclusion that we have 7 different layers within the earth came to not only the 20th century. The true believer would prostrate down in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The blessings of that prostration will reach the 7th earth.
Recite it every day and do read it loud.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. In this segment we're going to practice beginning with verse number 12 of Surat Yaseen. I understand that last time we stopped at verse number 15, but I'd like to begin the story from the beginning, and verse number 12 is a very interesting verse as well. Let me remind you in the beginning, in this segment, with our phone numbers for those who would like to join us live. Area code 002-0238-555-248 or 249. 248 or 249. Also, I'd like to remind you with our email address. It is tajweed@huda.tv. That's TAJWEED @huda.tv. Let's begin with Mustafa. Verse number 12.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين.
Did you sense صفة الصفير with the letter صاد when you said وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين, right? And I want to remind you with the letter را. ما قدموا وآثارهم, because the ra has a fatha, so it is permanently مفخمة, permanently fat. Would you read it again, please?
إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين.
ما شاء الله.
وضرب لهم.
Now we have to stop. We're supposed to study Al-Qalqala today again, but guess what? Let me remind you, the Dad
is not from the Qalqala letters.
This is one of the things which differentiates between the Da and other letters, such as the Ta, for instance. At-Ta is one of the Qalqala letters, the Dad not. So the Dad, in case of Sukoon, I would have to pronounce it with the imprisonment of the sound, and there is no Qalqala whatsoever. There is no shaking of the letter. So I would say, وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا.
وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلَ أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ.
While the Ba is one of the Qalqala letters, so I'd say وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا.
وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلَ أَصْحَابَ
مثلا أصحاب.
وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ إِذْ جَاءَهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون.
Once you feel yourself running out of breath, prepare yourself ahead of time. Instead of wasting the mad or changing the rules, you begin by lengthening al-mad al-munfasil, the separate permissible mad, 4 harakas, right? So you have to go by the same rule throughout your recitation, at least in the same sitting. So he said, إِذْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ اثْنَيْنِ. And by the way, the word اثنين begins with this alif, we call it hamza. But this hamza, why don't we pronounce it? Why don't we say إِلَيْهِمُ اثْنَيْنِ? Because this hamza, the alif does not have the hamza. So we read it as hamzat wasl, as a bridge, and we will have a whole session just talking about hamzatul wasli wal qata. So that's why we have to snatch it swiftly and say إليهم اثنين. Non-stop. إليهم اثنين. It seems like we don't have even alif. From the meme to the tha. From the meme of the previous word to the tha of the following word. What happened to the alif? It's a bridge. إليهم اثنين. Okay? Say it again and take your time. And if you believe that if you think that you're running out of breath, stop, then resume again, bring a complete meaning.
إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون.
When we return back after we take Sister Amina, we'll comment on the ikhfa in this verse. Sister Amina from the USA. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're live and correct your recitation.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Would you please read from verse number 13, please?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون.
ما شاء الله.
قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم.
Can we say تطيرنا? I want you to look at the letter ta. It's followed by a ta. So each letter has its own characteristics and makhraj. Ta, ta, تطيرنا.
قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم.
Sister Amina, your recitation is fairly good, mashallah. So please pay attention to the ghunna, especially on the noon and the meme, al-mushaddadatain, which has the emphasis or the shadda. So you should say لَنَرْجُمَنَّكُمْ وَلَيَمَسَّنَّكُمْ, because there is a ghunna on the noon which has shadda. Again please, لَإِن لَمْ تَنْتَهُوا.
قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون.
جزاكم الله خيرا. Thank you, Sister Amina. Remember, مسرفون. Why the ra is so thin? Because it has kasra. The ra with kasra or with there is permanently thin. Permanently
thin.
muraqqaqa. Okay. We'll go back to Mustafa. It was verse number 13. Right, Mustafa? 14. Now, and I would like to remind the viewers, in Qur'an, the verse number follows the verse. It comes by the end of the verse, not ahead of the verse. So now, بِثَالِثٍ فَقَالُوا, there is ikhfa. Where? The word بِثَالِث
ends with the tanween.
Ended up with the tanween. You reminded us. The tanween basically is treated like a nun sakina. And it's followed by
fa.
Letter fa.
Which is
fa is one of the 15 letters which cause
the
ikhfa haqiqi. Real ikhfa, in case that a nun sakina or a tanween is followed by one of those 15 letters, amongst them is the fa. So in this case, we'll conceal the nun, but The ghunna is there. 2 harakas, 2 counts. فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إن and so on. Okay? طيب Yasser, go ahead and read again verse number 14. I would ask you kindly please to pause until we take Sister Farha from Qatar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Farha. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Would you please raise the volume a little bit?
Which ayah I want to read?
Okay. You want to recite? You want to join us in the recitation? Sister Farha, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون.
The last couple of words, Sister Farha. There is a difference between فَقَالُوا and فَقَالُوا. This is the importance of the صفات. فَقَالُوا. Okay? Continue please.
قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم.
Again, the qaf, please.
قالوا
قا.
قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم.
Thank you, Sister Farha. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Thank you for joining us live. Now, yes, again. Verse number
14.
إذ
أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون.
You just reminded us with a very interesting thing. In case that you ran out of breath at the word فقالوا, what are you supposed to do?
There's مد طبيعي.
مد طبيعي, right? How many counts?
2 counts.
So what would you make it for? Oh, because I was preparing myself to continue. And that's why a smart and an expert reciter would have his eyesight ahead of his recitation. You're looking before you're reading. So you examine exactly how far could you go. Okay, continue please.
قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون.
Okay, before the end of this episode, amongst the beautiful benefits of the sifat and the characteristics, we will learn that we're not supposed to say قالوا, because the lam, it's al, not al. And due to the qaf, we have to shift the lam a little bit, so it will be قالوا. And later on we'll learn how to bring it this way. Muhammad, in the last couple of minutes, please continue from verse number 17. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا
وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم.
Very good, mashallah. Continue.
قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون.
It would have been better have you stopped at قالوا طائركم معكم. But anyway, inshallah, also we will study in details al-waqf wal-ibtida, hopefully inshallah down the road. Unfortunately, brothers and sisters, once again, this is the nature of life. We ran out of time. Enjoyed being with you today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us all and forgive us our sins and make our lives fruitful to serve Him, to learn His deen, and to spread this light everywhere. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Brothers and sisters, to increase your iman, read the miracle, recite the Qur'an. Recite it every day and do read it loud. The verses of Qur'an are all Muslims' pride. This miracle was revealed over a long time span, sent from Allah to an angel, then to a man. That man was Muhammad, the best of creation. We were chosen to be part of His nation. He gave us a message, and that was Islam. So read this miracle, recite the Qur'an.